Today biology lesson I am demonstrate to understand the biological ideas related to microorganism. We can identify three types of microorganism. First one is bacteria. Second type is fungi. There are two types, yeast and molds. Third category is viruses. So all these three are called microorganism. Microorganism. Now let's have a look. What are the sizes? And then we'll compare these sizes to each of microorganisms. So what is the smallest microorganism from this group? It's definitely viruses. What would be the size? It's around 0.1 micrometer. Then the second place is a bacteria cell. So normally bacteria, we have two types. First one is a circular, or we call coccus. Other type is like a rod shape. So bacteria and rod shape. Okay, what would be the size of these two? Coccus normally 1 micrometer and rod 2 to 3 micrometer. Okay, next is the yeast. Yeast is bigger than the rod cells. It's around, this is yeast. The size is around 5 to 8 micrometers. So shall we compare these organisms with the animal cell? So normally the size of the animal cell is around 10 micrometers. This is the animal cell. (10 micrometer). So everybody know now the animal cell has a nucleus. What is the size of this nucleus? Is around 2.8 micrometers. Now let's compare the other microorganism. So we have bacteria now, yeast, virus. What happened to the mold? Yeah, mold cells often larger. It's the biggest one. It's a mold. So what would be the size? Is 40 micrometers. Now let's talk about the bacteria. What are the things you know about bacteria? Bacteria are very small and single cells organism. Single cell. Where we can find bacteria? We can find in air, water, soil, what else? Food. And also we can find these bacteria inside and outside of all living organism. What are the things that bacteria need? So they require moisture. What else? They require food and warm. So different bacteria are suited to different temperature. Some are we called as aerobic bacteria. What does that mean? They require oxygen. If bacteria need oxygen to survive, we call as aerobic. Some of the bacteria, they do not require oxygen, that we are called as anaerobic. Okay, two categories. Aerobic, need oxygen. Anaerobic, they do not require oxygen. Do not. Right, let's see the structure of the bacteria. What are the things they have? Now you can see the main component is a cell wall. Okay. Normally, bacteria has a cell wall. Then outer to the cell wall, there is another layer you can see here. It's called as a capsule. Capsule. Inside the cell wall, there is a plasma membrane. Plasma membrane. Now you can see from the plasma membrane or inside of the cell or cytoplasm, here cytoplasm, there is a flagellum coming out, and within the cytoplasm you can see the genetic material. Okay, now let's see from outside to inside. Capsule, cell wall, plasma membrane, cytoplasm, then genetic material or DNA. And the structures which are coming out from the cytoplasm to the outer surface we call as a flagellum. So there are different bacteria. One is the saprophytic bacteria. Saprophytic. Saprophytic. Or sometimes we call as a saprotrophic. So this kind of bacteria are decomposers. They are decomposers. So that means they are feed on dead organism. Dead organism and waste. Saprophytic bacteria. The other type is pathogenic bacteria. They are parasites. They are parasites. They are feed on a living host. They are feed on a living host. So what they cause? They cause diseases. So some of the bacteria, they live on the dead organisms or waste, and some of them live on the living host or living organism, cause diseases. Also, there is another type or another classification that we can do. We can identify bacteria as a helpful bacteria. Yes, helpful bacteria. These are the different criterias. Helpful bacteria. What they are used to? They are used to produce foods. What kind of food we can produce from bacteria? Example, cheese and yogurt. And some helpful bacteria, they release vitamin K. In our intestine. If we consider about the environment, some bacteria are helpful to recycle nutrients. As example, nitrogen cycle, in the environment. So there's a lots of help from bacteria. What are the other things that helpful bacteria can do? They can produce drugs. So some antibiotics are from bacteria. So some antibiotics coming from bacteria. Some are coming from fungi. Okay. Right, now we know about helpful bacteria. So what is the opposite? Harmful bacteria. So what that kind of bacteria do? They can make the food inedible. Make food inedible. Okay, so that's really disaster. And also it create illness. You know, you have so much food poisoning, isn't it? Food poisoning. Sometimes it goes by bacteria. And the diseases like meningitis, it's very popular among the youth. And tetanus. Do you remember tetanus? When you are working with some metal or when you work in the field, you need to have some protection from tetanus. What is the other one? Tuberculosis. So many illness. Whooping cough. Very popular. Illness made by bacteria. Okay, let's talk about the second type, fungi. So now you know yeast and mold. Yeast and mold. And mushrooms. They are all fungi. So fungi required, as we discussed before, they required food, moisture, and warmth. And some are aerobic and some are anaerobic. The fungi body consists of these structures we call as a fungal hyphae. Fungal hyphae. So this is called fungal hyphae. So this is a thread-like structure. So that spread through the substance that fungi is living on. Now if you look at the soil, or suppose this fungi on the piece of bread, okay, so this is the food. So this hyphae spread through the substance. Right, so now then it's connected each other. Okay. And then these fungi produce spores, which grow in a spore head or sporangium. Now from this structure, they make this kind of structures, right? And then they make a head here. So this head we called as what we call a sporangium. Sporangium. So within the sporangium, you can see lot of spores inside. So what are the spores mean? They are the reproductive material. Spores. And this arm we called as the sporangiophore. Sporangiophore. Right, so this is a mature sporangium. Right, and so what's happened if when it's the sporangium is burst? Okay, now you can see like this. So the spores come outside. Okay, so then through the wind, some other forces, they are spreading. How it is in the very immature stage, it's like a small bud. Right, so let me recap again. The body of the fungus consists of hyphae. This is the fine thread-like structures that spread through the substance, like bread or like a food or soil or something that the fungus is living on. Then fungi produce spores. Here, spores, which grow in a spore head we call as a sporangium. When it's mature, the sporangium bursts and then release the large amount of spores into the air. And what happened? These spores again settle on the another surface or same space or nearby food pieces, and they started to grow. So earlier we discussed fungi, they have saprophytic fungi and the pathogenic fungi. What is the meaning of saprophytic? Again, so we will try to repeatedly use this word, then it helps to remember. So what is the meaning of saprophytic? They live and feed on dead organism. Saprotrophic or live and dead. And the other one is pathogenic. Pathogenic fungi are we call as parasites. Saprotrophic or saprophytic. So saprotrophic or saprophytic, they live on dead organism. Pathogenic one, they living on living organism. and make work as a parasites and cause the diseases. So far we talk about bacteria and fungi, and the third type is viruses. The specialty of viruses is the microorganism that cannot survive without a living host. Without a living host. Think back again. Bacteria and fungi, they both can live dead as well as living. But viruses, they cannot survive without a living host. So what does it mean? They are always pathogenic. So viruses are always pathogenic. So they cause diseases. Viruses are often thought to be non-living. Why? We call as a non-living. Why it's thought to be non-living? They are reproduced but do not grow feed, respire, or excrete waste. So because of these characters, we often thought viruses are non-living organisms. How about the shape? They have variety of shapes. But they all have a protein case. Now special protein case that hold genetic material. So this one having the genetic material. What are the diseases that you know? Think. What are the viruses? Cause any diseases to you? Yes, mostly we can see flu, common cold, and some nasty diseases, AIDS, measles, mumps. Have you heard these things? Everything caused by viruses. Hepatitis. Right. So how viruses are reproduced? So they reproduce by entering another living cell. So they enter to the another living cell. Another living cell. That living cell we call host. Okay, now we know host. They need a living host. What's happening? Now here you can see this is the host cell. And this is the host cell nuclear material. Like suppose this is our human cell or animal cell. And that cell having their own genetic material. So virus attach to the host cells. So first they are attach. Number one. Attach. Then what's happened? Genetic material from the virus enter the host cells. Now this is the that we call that the protein capsule. So it has that genetic material. So this genetic material they release to the host organism. What is happening next? Second one, genetic material. Genetic material enter to the host cell. What are the things you know about host cell? Host cell is a living organism. It has their own genetic material. Now third, then contents of host cells are used to make viral genetic material and protein codes. Now after they release their host, the virus DNA into the host, then this one use the host genetic material and make their own copies, make their own genetic material as well as the protein code. See? So now they make own viral genetic material. So finally what happened? Host cell burst and new viruses are released. Then new viruses are released. So what happened to the host cell? Host cell dies. Host cell dies. Okay, now today we learn about microorganism, bacteria, virus, and fungi. We'll meet in another biology lesson soon. Thanks for listening.